Okay, as I trust everybody knows, I was in opposition to Kavanaugh's nomination from almost the day that Trump brought forth his name. And the reason for me was pretty simple. Based on his work at the Bush administration, based on his rulings as a judge, it was very apparent to me that if Kavanaugh was seated, he would become part of the hard right majority, which would continue to vote against the needs of working people, women, the environment, voter turnout, and campaign finance reform. That was pretty clear to me. And I hope everybody understands that what we have seen in recent years on the Supreme Court was decision after decision, which were really disastrous. Today, billionaires are buying elections. You know why? 5-4 ruling on the part of the Supreme Court called Citizens United. Today, all over this country, in Republican states, we're seeing massive efforts to suppress the vote of poor people, people of color, young people, and that has everything to do with the fact that by a 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court gutted the 1965 Civil Rights Act. We are seeing increased attacks on unions, and that has a lot to do with the recent decision in the Janus case, which will result in public sector unions losing membership because as a result of the Supreme Court, public sector workers don't have to pay dues, but will get the benefits of union contracts. That's what we've seen, just a little bit of what we've seen in recent years. What we are looking at now is the very strong possibility that a case will come before the Supreme Court questioning the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. That will be brought by Republican attorneys general. And if the court rules with those Republicans, what it will mean is that millions of people will lose the protections they now have in terms of pre-existing conditions. And we'll go back to the old days where if you had cancer or heart disease or diabetes, you would find it difficult or impossible to get health insurance that you could afford. And what we also expect to come before the court in the not too distant future are cases challenging Roe versus Wade and the right of a woman to control her own body. That is what is at stake, not to mention a whole lot of strong environmental issues that will also be coming before the court. So that's where we are right now. And I opposed Kavanaugh well before these sexual allegations because I knew what kind of role he would play on the Supreme Court. But as I think everybody is aware, since Trump nominated Kavanaugh, there have been serious and credible allegations of sexual assault by 3 women. And it goes without saying that these charges must be seriously investigated. And I think it speaks to the incredible courage of these women to come forward with a full understanding of all of the attacks and smears that would be thrown at them by coming forward. But they had the courage to do that, and that is something we should all respect. Now, what is almost laughable that in the midst of all of this, Mitch McConnell and my Republican colleagues, they are telling us that they want to move this process forward as quickly as they can. Yeah, the FBI will do an investigation, but it's got to be within a week, and we got to vote, and we got to do this thing really, really quickly because they want that seat to be filled. How terrible it would be if we had a vacancy, continued vacancy on the court. And why that is laughable is, I think many of you will remember, they left, the Republicans left the Supreme Court seat unfilled for almost a year because they did not like President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland. So these guys who are telling us how quickly we have to move, how short the FBI investigation should be, these are the people who left a Supreme Court seat vacant for almost a year. But what I want to do now is go beyond Brett Kavanaugh's right-wing tendencies, go beyond the issue of sexual assault and the need to thoroughly investigate those allegations. I want to touch on another issue that truly does not get the attention that it deserves. And that is the very important issue of whether or not Kavanaugh has been honest in terms of his testimony before Congress recently and in the past. Can we trust the veracity of Judge Kavanaugh? And I wrote a letter the other day to Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley. Now let me summarize what was in that letter, which said that the FBI must examine Kavanaugh's veracity. In his previous testimony before Congress, Kavanaugh was asked more than 100 times if he knew about files stolen by Republican staffers from Judiciary Committee Democrats. Some of you may recall that situation. And what Kavanaugh said was that he knew nothing. Now, this was when he was a member of the Bush administration. He knew nothing about that. He never read those information. Yet, recently, emails received as part of these hearings show that these files were regularly shared with Kavanaugh while he was on the Bush White House staff. And in fact, one of the emails had the subject line, spying. Okay. Further, in 2006, Judge Kavanaugh told Congress he did not know anything about the NSA warrantless wiretapping program prior to its being reported by the New York Times. Didn't know anything about it. This year, an email revealed that while at the White House, he might have been involved in some conversations about this program. In 2004, Judge Kavanaugh testified the nomination of William Pryor to the 11th Circuit, quote, was not one that I, Judge Kavanaugh, worked on personally, end quote. Well, documents now contradict that statement. Newly released documents also call into question whether Judge Kavanaugh was truthful that the nomination of Charles Pickering, quote, was not one of the judicial nominees that I was primarily handling, end of quote. In 2006, Judge Kavanaugh testified, and I quote, I was not involved and am not involved in the questions about the rules governing detention of combatants, end of quote. New evidence released as part of this confirmation process contradicts that assertion. Additionally, in terms of the recent allegations regarding the sexual assault situation, Judge Kavanaugh repeatedly told the committee that he never drank to the point where he didn't remember something. He also denied ever becoming aggressive when he drinks. However, there have been many reports from those Judge Kavanaugh attended high school, college, and law school with that contradict this assertion. Was Kavanaugh telling the truth, or are his classmates telling the truth? It's important to find that out. This is above and beyond drinking. This has to do with veracity and honesty in testifying before the committee. Judge Kavanaugh testified that he treated women, quote, as friends and equals and with dignity and respect. All right, that's what he testified to. However, numerous entries in his school yearbook would seem to contradict this. Was Judge Kavanaugh's statement to the committee truthful in that respect? Kavanaugh claimed he did not drink on weeknights, but an entry on his calendar for Thursday, July 1st states, quote, go to Timmy's for skis with Judge, Tom, PJ, Bernie, Squee, end of quote. Yet Kavanaugh clarified to Senator Booker that skis referred to beer. Was his original statement to the committee truthful? Kavanaugh claimed numerous times in response to Dr. Ford's allegation that, quote, all four witnesses say it didn't happen, end quote, and that witnesses, quote, refuted Dr. Ford's story. Yet, one of the witnesses simply said she didn't remember the party in question, but that she believes Dr. Ford. Kavanaugh testified that he had no connections to Yale, when in fact he was a legacy student whose grandfather attended the school. Now, it seems to me that a very fundamental question that the FBI must pursue is whether Judge Kavanaugh has been truthful in his appearances before the Judiciary Committee. This goes to the very heart of whether or not he should be confirmed to the court. Because if somebody consistently lies to the U.S. Senate, well, to my mind, that disqualifies you from getting a seat on a federal court, least of all the United States Supreme Court. So that's where we are right now. And once again, I know that Mitch McConnell, the Republican leadership, want to race this thing through. What is far more important, I believe, to the American people, that we get it, the truth of the matter, before we vote. Thank you all very much.